and welcome to the monthly AMA. I'm going to start off this time by actually just being a bit more clear about what these are. Ask Me Anything videos are a result of one of the rewards that people can get by pledging to me over on my Patreon. Anybody from any tier can ask questions once a month. There's no real restriction. You can pledge for as low as $1 and then just ask a question, or up to 5 if you want. And that's where I get the questions for these videos, just to be fully clear on where those come from. In any case, with that out of the way, I'm going to start with the questions. So the first one comes from Leaf Blady, and it is Paper Mario rankings. This actually took a little bit of time for me to set in stone. Some of them were easy, but others were hard. And I actually ranked them by story, gameplay, and then overall, because some of them I think the story is stronger while the gameplay isn't, and vice versa. So for story, my ranking would be Super Paper Mario is in first, then Thousand Year Door, then Paper Mario 64, Origami King, Color Splash, and Sticker Star. So Super Paper Mario by a long shot is the story is so good. I love it so much. Makes me cry. It's got the deeper characters. There are definitely weaker moments, but it definitely has the strongest, I think. And then Paper Mario 64 and then Thousand Year Door, with Thousand Year Door just edging over for its uniqueness. But that one was a lot closer, honestly, because as I was sitting and thinking about it, I did realize that 64 is a bit more consistent in the quality, and it remains at a pretty high point, and I think the lowest points aren't as low as Thousand Year Door's lowest points. That said, Thousand Year Door is a classic, and I mean 64 is also a classic, but Thousand Year Door is quite a bit more unique. The train mystery and the Glitz Pit are some standouts, and I get that 64 was sort of the baseline basic Mario stuff, but it still had a lot of charm there because the Mario universe does have a lot of charm. And then of course quite a bit further below, I'd say Origami King is definitely the highlight in story terms of the newer entries, because there actually was sort of a story there, and Color Splash kind of had one, but it was really basic and didn't feel fleshed out. For full disclosure though, I didn't play Color Splash, but I watched a playthrough. But watching a playthrough, you get the story that way, obviously, because I mean it's the story, but it felt flat. And then of course everybody knows Sticker Star basically doesn't have a story, the bare bones for a Sticker Star's quote-unquote story. The best part of Sticker Star was the mansion, because there was a semblance of a story. But even then, getting to gameplay, Thousand Year Door is in first, then 64, Super Paper Mario, Origami King, Color Splash, and then Sticker Star. You're going to notice that Color Splash and Sticker Star are just in the bottom for me. You might be going, oh, but you didn't play Color Splash, how can you know? Even just watching it was kind of a chore. Do you know what I mean? I know myself well enough to know, filling in the cards and the fact that running away is the best option usually. That's not great design. I took game design classes, and it's not good. And it's actually for that reason that Origami King is actually pretty low. I will say this, if the battles weren't so designed against the player, it might have beaten out Super Paper Mario, because Super Paper Mario there's not too much wrong with it. It's just very basic. It's most of the game you're just doing a little bit of platforming, and not even super intense platforming. It's pretty simple platforming. There are hard moments here or there, but for the most part it's holding right, jumping, maybe a puzzle here and there, but it's very simplistic, which it works, but it's I'm looking for a little bit more. And Origami King the battles were just so like I personally just hated the battles so much, and that's so much of the gameplay. So it's hard to rank it higher. That said, the stuff that wasn't battles was pretty fun, like traversing the maps, finding the toads. The mini games were pretty fun. So in those aspects, it's nice and it's good, but the battles just sunk it so low for me. So with all that said, overall, my rankings would be, I'll go from the bottom this time. Sticker Star in last, Color Splash, Origami King, Super Paper Mario, 64, and then Thousand Year Door at the top. 64 was very, very close, though, because it is just such a tight experience overall, but Thousand Year Door, I think, just edges it out because of its uniqueness. So there's my rankings. Took a little bit of a while, but I wanted to explain my reasonings at least a little bit. So the next round of questions comes from Hannah Page. First one being, did you have a favorite costume growing up? I did. It was actually a pretty simple black and purple witch robe with a hat. Not quite what is pictured here, but not too different. Just nice and simple. But on colder Halloweens, it didn't really work as well because, snow. So those were a few times I'd wear a bear costume or something like that. Next question. As a follow-up, what kind of costume would you like now if someone was willing to write you a blank check for it? For some reason, my first gut response was Madoka. A fun magical girl costume sounds really cute. So similarly, something like one of the outfits from Cardcaptor Sakura would be really fun. Which I know that's not a scary costume, but I think I like cute stuff. It's still dressing up, it's fine. Next question. What kind of candy would you light up at filling your trick-or-treat basket? Which I think that means, which would you like to see the most in your basket? My answer would have to be Twix chocolate. I actually like those quite a bit. Next question. If you could go trick-or-treating without any weird looks from being an adult, would you? Because I 100% without hesitation would. For me, it depends. If I know for sure there's enough candy to go around for the youngins, then yeah. Because I think that, I had my chance as a child to trick-or-treat. The kids should also, have them first in line. But that said, free food is always welcome these days. Because, last question from Hannah. You know him, the fighting freak Knuckles. He's at Pumpkin Hill. Are you ready? No. I'm not ready. Next set of questions comes from Angel Princess. Do you have any favorite Halloween memes? If so, care to share? The one that I think of first is occasionally on Tumblr, here and there, people will be like, it's almost Halloween, and then somebody responds, it's May, or something like that, and then they go, irrelevant. It's not too frequent, so it's not overbearing, and I just think it's funny, because, every once in a while, it's just Halloween spirit all year round, but not overbearing. Next question is, have you ever been to a corn maze? I have. Weirdly enough, I feel like I remember it being a church field trip. Unsure of how it related to church, but the people I recall going with were definitely in the catechism class I was in, and rather than a school bus, a field trip from school, it was a bunch of cars driven by different parents. So it's less of an official trip, it feels like. It was either that or somebody's birthday, but I don't think it was a birthday. But yeah, it was interesting. Trying to find your way around. Luckily, you could just go through it if you wanted to get out. So, and last question, on a scale of nope to how do you feel about the eel and the piano in Super Mario 64? When I was a kid, I was much more afraid of them both. Nowadays, I'm pretty much okay with the piano, other than the initial jump of exactly when it activates, because you do have to go over there for red coin. But otherwise, you don't have to go near it, so... meanwhile, the eel is still a bit just a little bit, because he moves around and you're forced to interact with him, so it's a bit more of a gamble there. The next and last set of questions is from Aquasun. The first question being opinions on gambling. This is a bit of a tough one, since there's a few angles here you can kind of look at it from. For instance, when companies actively prey on people with gambling addictions, that's super scummy and like, I hate that. And the fact that people can get addicted to it is already oof, considering it most often involves people like spending their money and assets for essentials. That said, I do understand the appeal that lies in there, like the like, ooh, let's see if I can win, like the luck side of it, random chance. I do just think that gambling is at its quote unquote best in environments where people can't gamble away their life savings or like real life things. As an example of that, Tales of Vesperia's poker game uses in-game chips. So like if you get to 0 in the game, it's like, oh no, but it's not even like your money from the game, like you can buy chips, but like it's all in game, right? So getting completely like down to 0 isn't like, at worst it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna reload my save, like it's not a big deal. Similarly, as of a mechanic it can be, Xenoblade 2's gacha system is also, I believe, pretty much fully in game. I think you can get like a few chances with core crystals in a small DLC pack, but I don't believe it's the type of thing that you just keep buying it with in real life money. Like you get that one DLC pack that's just like a part of a bigger pack, and that's it. Otherwise, it's completely done in game. It can definitely be annoying from what I've seen, but like if it's completely within the scope of a game and not real life money, I think that type of gambling is a little bit fun. That said, something like the Xenoblade 2 system is not as good as the Vesperia one, because Vesperia's is like, at most you're just buying like cosmetic things with the chips or like extra items that you can buy elsewhere in the game. Meanwhile, Xenoblade 2's quote unquote gambling thing is like some characters and side quests are like bigger rewards are locked behind the random chance, and I think that sucks. Like at most maybe one quest being behind gambling just because of the random nature of it. You know what I mean? But otherwise, if it's just a frivolous thing with the in-game currency only, gambling's like fun in that aspect, but with real life assets can be very, very scummy. Next question from Aquasun is opinion of sushi. I'm sure it tastes delicious and it looks delicious. As a piece I tried once years ago, had a great taste, but I am a very much a texture person and I couldn't do the texture, so I had to spit out the piece that I tried, and I was very sad because, like I said, I could tell it tasted great, but my body was like, oh, what is this? Get it off. And I was like, no. So maybe one day, if I don't have as much of a texture thing, I'll be able to eat it, but as of right now, my phone is going off. I have to silence that, or just let it ding, whatever. Next question from Aquasun is, do you consider yourself hip with the kids? Yes and no. I believe, personally, it does more with, how do I word this? If you try to be quote-unquote hip, then, how do I word it? It's almost like you're encroaching on something. Like, people are in different age groups for, like, they just are. And, like, I think the best way to have a strong relation between age groups and dynamics is to have respect, both ways. Not having they have to treat me as an elder all the time, or trying to learn all of the slang and have all of the same jokes. It's like, no, like, people are different ages. That is just a thing. And if anything, I feel like that makes kids like me more. So in that sense, I guess it's hip with the kids. Like, I don't know. But like, each age group has their own sort of culture. and that's totally fine. Like, I like having my own culture as, the age I am, and then like younger folks do, and like there's always going to be a slight disconnect. But if anything, I feel like the slight disconnect is more of a chance to like let people teach you, if that makes any sense. If they're willing, if you're like, hey, so what does this mean? I'm just curious, and they tell you, and you're like, oh man, that's neat. Like, I feel like, especially for younger people, they like having that knowledge that you don't. So if you let them teach it to you and you're respectful about it, and you're like, oh, thanks for telling me that, they'll be like, yeah. Like, I don't know, but that's my answer, I guess, if that's an answer. Next question. Have you ever thought about making, or have you made, a graphic novel style comic work? Yeah, I have in the past, definitely. Like once or twice, not an official work or anything like that. But because I know nowadays I mostly do like film strip style or 4 style comics. But I've definitely done a lot of more traditional style comics on my own time, even just like recently. But it's stuff that I just like do on my own time and don't really share. That said, it's also a lot of work, so I don't know if I'd ever fully do that. Like, it'd have to be like a well-paying good job, which I know that not a lot of that is, but I want to make sure I stay healthy and stuff. So I don't know. It would have to be a really good team or something like that. And the last question of all of these questions is a philosophical question. What is human nature / is there even such a thing? I do believe there is at least a bit of human nature. That said, I don't like whenever people blame it for their actions, because it's basically them stripping themselves of any agency. They're like, oh, it's not my fault that I did so and so thing. It's human nature. It's like, no, you chose to do that thing. As far as the human nature existing thing goes, I do think that there's obvious baselines, which is kind of a cheating answer of, nature of breathing, eating, drinking, sleeping, the base essentials that everybody needs. That's like the baseline nature. But then beyond that, I do think there is common stuff. Obviously not everybody, because there's 7 billion of us, so statistically it's very unlikely that it's every single person. But beyond that, I think that, say a common reaction that people can have is that they generally don't like being told what to do. You know what I mean? Like there are some things that it's like a similar thing, telling people to calm down when they're angry. Has that ever worked? Especially if they're like angry. Like, maybe if they're scared, but even then it's like I have never seen someone in a very high emotional state being told, hey, calm down, and then they actually do. like you need to do more than that. It's just that doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are some things that it's like very likely for people to react in certain ways to things. Like, if you punch somebody, they're gonna get mad. Do you know what I mean? Like, in that aspect, I think there is some human nature. That said, that there is still a lot of control people have over it. Like if somebody accidentally bumps into somebody else, the person might be like, hey, at first, but then once they be told, oh, it was an accident, sorry, depending on the person, they can be like, oh, okay, that's fine. So, just watch where you're going. Like, people could have different reactions beyond the thing, but there are some, I think, gut or instinctive reactions that are pretty common, and I think I would call that quote-unquote human nature. But again, even to a degree, you can still like learn to control that, get your feelings in check. Obviously not completely, because that's just, you can't. It's people. But you can learn to focus it in and be more in control of it, I believe. Anywho, that is the last question of the month, so we're going to switch over to the patron end screen. You can see all of my lovely patrons scrolling across here, along with the comic NPCs that show up in my monthly comics as part of the rewards that they get, depending on the pledge that they have. Also, the shoutouts that you see here and the links that are provided in the description are another perk that patrons can get, depending on their tier. The shoutouts that are at the end of this video and the end of streams are another perk, of course. As always, I am so thankful for everybody that supports. It really does mean a lot. And I hope that rewards like this for getting answers to these kinds of questions are nice little perks. They're certainly fun for me. I like seeing what different questions come in every month. It's always a fun grab bag of sorts. But yeah, also, I did not take out the anonymous one there. So somebody got listed there twice, but that's okay. But yeah, I suppose I will see you guys next month when some more questions come in. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. Bye!